So today I wanted to talk a little bit about fertilizing your vegetable garden. And most of the vegetables you grow will need some fertilizer along the way to help it along. Now, because most of my potted or my garden type vegetables are the ones that are grown in potting soil or a potting mix, already have quite a bit of nutrients in there. Since I use the Miracle Grow potting mix, there's a lot of stuff already added in there, so it's pretty nutrient rich. Plus, specifically for tomatoes and peppers, I use fresh potting mix, Miracle Grow potting mix, right from the beginning. Especially with the tomatoes, they don't like to be. You can't really use the soil from the previous year for the following year's tomato crop. And so, because of that, and because I'm using fresh potting mix, I'm not too concerned about fertilizing my vegetable garden with the potting mix in pots or even in a raised bed early on. I wait until the plants are mature and they've started flowering before I even add any more fertilizer. Now, once they start flowering and fruiting, they do need the extra boost. And so I go ahead and fertilize as required. Now, when it comes to the different kinds of fertilizers, if you want, you can go ahead and you can grow your, you can go ahead and fertilize your vegetable garden with a generic fertilizer. Um, I was given this shake and feed on the left here early on, and it was free, and so I used that for most of my garden initially. Um, it's for peppers and strawberries and basil, and you can use it for tomatoes, and even the blueberries are showing right there, right? And this one here is a mix of 10, 5, 15. So when you go ahead and look at the back of this, you'll be able to notice that it lists the main ingredients that are in here. Now, it basically has the three major building blocks, which is 10% nitrogen, 5% phosphorus, and 15% potash. Now, there are many other ingredients that you need for a healthy plant, but the three main building blocks are going to be the NPK. And I'm sure most of you have already heard that. Now, what happens is as it goes through different stages of its growing cycle, the needs and what you're trying to achieve may change. And so I'll get into a little bit more specifics if you want to fine tune your fertilizing schedule. Through conversations and through talking with other people, I ended up switching the fertilizer. And so I only use this shake and feed for my blueberry plants. Now, what happens is there's a lid here, and you shake off the granules and you'll shake them directly into your soil. And as you water, it has a slow release. And so as you water every single time and it works its way into the ground, it will give off the fertilizer it needs. Now, I like this plant food by Miracle Grow a lot better. This one here is a water soluble fertilizer. And this one here, I take a 1 gallon old milk jug and I fill it 3/4 of the way up with water. And then I add 3/4 of a tablespoon. They even give you this little scoop here. And I'll go ahead and fill that scoop up. And that will be used to water my garden. So as my vegetables start to flower, I'll go ahead and add that water soluble mixture formula into the garden pots. Now, this one here has 18% nitrogen, 18% phosphorus too, and 21% potash. Now, this one here is a generic plant-based food fertilizer. And the one reason I like it is it's water soluble. So as I put in the granules into the water, it dissipates, and then you water your vegetable garden. And I do that either every watering cycle or every other watering cycle. Now, if you want to get more specific, you can, because think about this. whether it's cucumbers or things like tomatoes or peppers, when you get to the mid stage of the growth of the plant and it's kind of basically have started flowering and now you're getting into the fruiting stage, the key is to actually get fruit, right? You want more vegetables. Now, if you're getting a generic run of the mill fertilizer, it's going to work on all three aspects. It's going to work on the root system, it's going to work on the foliage, it's going to work on flowering. Well, we want more flowers, which means more vegetables. And so when it comes to things like tomatoes and cucumbers, we can use a fertilizer in the mid stages of our growth cycle of our vegetable garden to promote more flowering, which means promoting more vegetables. So I use this More Bloom, which has it's made with fish, and it promotes not only the good root system but also the flowering plants, right? So whether it's green onions, cucumbers, jalapenos, or peppers, even tomatoes in the mid stages, I could do that. Now, tomatoes are a huge feeder, right? And so I've found more success in sticking still with the plant food by Miracle Grow, the water soluble kind, because tomatoes are such big feeders. They still need a lot of fertilizer to promote their leaf growth and overall well being of the plant. When it comes to cucumbers, I'm more interested in getting more flowers, which will equal more vegetables. And so I'll go ahead and, in the mid stages of my cucumber growth, my green onions, my bell peppers, any jalapenos, I'll go ahead and switch to the 0-10-10 mix, which promotes less foliage and more fruiting, flowering production. Now, you don't necessarily have to go ahead and purchase all three or multiple different kinds of fertilizer. If you wanted to stick with one, I would recommend the Miracle Grow plant food or any sort of water soluble fertilizer. So every time you need to water, you can go ahead and add a little bit of this fertilizer mix. And like many things in life, more is not better. So don't over fertilize your vegetable garden. Stick to what it's recommended on the instruction manual. Just only go ahead and use the fertilizer as directed. Typically when it comes to fertilizing, because I'm already using good potting mix or raised bed mix, I don't have to worry about fertilizing my garden in the early stages, the seedling stage, in the transplant phase, until it starts flowering, and a lot of energy is needed to turn those flowers into fruit vegetables. I'm not going to hit it with fertilizer until we get into the mid stages. And then on top of that, if you want to go ahead and use whatever you have already in the around the house, that's perfectly fine. I went ahead and was using the shake and feed early on, but I realized that it takes a little bit of time for the granules to work into the ground and then to release it, because they are basically slow release pellets. I kind of switched this over to just using it only for the blueberry plants. And I'll do a video later on about fertilizing and managing and growing blueberry plants, since it was already requested. But I kind of saved this shake and feed for the blueberry plants. I went ahead and switched over to this water soluble fertilizer for most of the vegetable garden. And then if I want to concentrate on just flowering and fruiting for my cucumbers, tomatoes, peppers, or anything else, I can go ahead and use something specific like More Bloom. Now, like I said before, I prefer to use the Miracle Grow plant food water soluble formula for tomatoes, just because it has all three NPK aspects of the fertilizing solution is high enough in here to promote tomatoes, since tomatoes are heavy feeders. I just only use the More Bloom for items that I want to have more flowers. Now, a thing that you can control too, which I'll do another video on, is buying the right seeds. I mean, everything starts from the beginning, right? So buy your seeds from a reputable dealer. And I buy my cucumber seeds that are hybrid varieties. And I buy ones where the flowering is more extensive. And then on top of that, because they've been hybrid type cucumber seeds, I make sure I buy ones where they're 80% female versus 20% male flowers, because male flowers do not turn into vegetables. They don't fruit. And so by me buying the hybrid cucumber seeds where there's going to be 80% females in relation to 20% males, I'm going to get more fruit on my cucumber plants. And so because of that, I get a larger harvest, and then I hit it with this more bloom, and I get additional flowering throughout the cycle. And I told you in an earlier video, it's also important to make sure that as it flowers, that you pick your vegetables early enough, because if you keep on leaving them on the stem as it matures, the plant kind of shuts down and thinks, okay, I've already flowered and fruited. Now I need to turn those vegetables, those fruit, into developed seeds inside the vegetable. And we don't want that. So that's why I either pick my vegetables just slightly premature or make sure that they are picked right at the height of maturity. Because once the plant senses that it needs to turn those seeds into mature seeds, then it'll kind of shut down the flowering production. And so that's a little bit about fertilizing. There's a number of different fertilizers out there. You can buy specific fertilizer for tomatoes. You can buy specific fertilizer for like blueberries. I used to do that, but I have quite a few blueberry plants, and the blueberry fertilizer was a little expensive. So I went ahead and used the shake and feed for now. Once that's all gone, then I might get on to Amazon and buy specific blueberry fertilizer. But in terms of the vegetable garden, there's a lot of general fertilizer for vegetable gardens that are just perfectly fine. I lean toward more of the water soluble, since I have to water my garden anyways, and it has a well-balanced NPK formula with the water soluble formula. I use the Miracle Grow water soluble plant food. And then if you want to get more in depth and more fine tuning your fertilizer in the mid stages, you can go into ones where things like pepper plants and cucumber plants, where you're trying to promote more flowering to get more fruit, you can go ahead and buy this additional fertilizer and switch to this one. But it's not needed. If you wanted to just go with a one all end all fertilizer, then go with a water soluble formula. So that's a little bit about fertilizing your vegetable garden. I'll be in touch dealing more with end rot on the tomatoes, and more about the fertilizing of the blueberries a little bit later. But take care for now.